Hey y'all, Dixie here. Today I want to talk to you about my favorite luxury item I carried on my through hike of the Continental Divide Trail, and that is the Garmin InReach Explorer Plus. Now, I used to be one of those people that was like, I'll be fine, I don't need any kind of SOS device or personal locator beacon. You know, a lot of people back in the day didn't have that technology and they were just fine. And I know there are a lot of old timers and folks who have been backpacking for years and years that are like, you know, I've survived just fine without any of that stuff and I don't need it. Well, also, Grandma Gatewood thru-hiked the Appalachian Trail with a tarp and in a pair of Keds. And, you know, you don't see all the people that make those claims like, you don't need that new technology stuff, doing things the way that she did it, right? So I guess my point before I get started is to say that it's okay to want to be as safe as possible. It doesn't mean that you're not tough or that it shows a lack of experience or anything like that. I used to be of that mindset, and after I had some pretty sketchy experiences in the Sierra Nevada during my through hike on the PCT in 2017, I decided that I wanted some device to be able to let people know that I was okay or to call for help if I needed it. Now, if you're not familiar with the InReach, it's basically a device that communicates through satellite. So you're able to text message two ways. You're able to send messages and receive them and have basically a conversation. You can message to a cell phone, you can message to an email address, or even InReach to InReach. It's like old school texting, so there are no photos or videos or anything like that, but being able to communicate from person to person is wonderful. And this is probably the biggest reason I got the InReach, because letting my mother know that I was alive and accounted for and being able to send her my exact location, I knew just gave her so much peace of mind, and me too, because if I was expecting a certain stretch to last 3 days or 4 days and it ended up taking me 5 or 6, and if I didn't get cell service to let somebody know they might be worried, it just gave me peace of mind and allowed me to relax a little bit, knowing that the people at home were relaxed a little bit. The InReach also allows you to track and share your progress on a trip. So there is a web-based map share portal that allows you to share certain information with people. You can set the InReach to where it will record waypoints at a certain time interval and share that information there. And you could also share your location on a blog or a website through social media if you choose to do that. I know a lot of folks who are doing a hike for maybe a certain cause, like fundraising, might do that because they've got a significant following kind of watching their progress and maybe cheering them on. I would use a little caution with that. Me personally, I only like specific people that I have selected to know where I am exactly at any given location. So, you know, just be a little careful with that and make sure you're okay with the people who have access to that information. So if you've ever looked at a Garmin InReach, you might notice that it doesn't have a keyboard, and just to let you know, it's not touchscreen. So when you're messaging, you have to use these little over arrows and select buttons for kind of each character. So one of the things that I really liked about it is that you can link it to the Earthmate app on your smartphone. That way you can do all of your texting through there. It has a little keyboard, and you can even do emojis if you're into that kind of thing. But I just like the convenience of having another option as far as sending text messages rather than, you know, over click. Not only does the messaging pair, but also the ability to store waypoints, look at the weather, call for help through SOS, you know, all of the functions that you pretty much have on the device, you can also do through the app on your phone. Another reason I chose the InReach Explorer Plus is because I liked the idea of having some form of backup navigation. I did not carry a compass and topo maps on any 3 of the through hikes that I did. Like I always say, I'm not suggesting that y'all don't carry those things. I'm just saying that I did not. And so on the CDT, I liked having some form of backup navigation, and the InReach Explorer Plus actually has a lot of topo maps already preloaded into the device. The CDT, there was actually like a dotted line for that trail in the InReach. Now, it would not be my prime source of navigation, so I would definitely still want a smartphone with gut hook, but if my phone were to break or it was to die and I still had some power on my InReach, it was just nice to have some form of backup navigation, and having the topos and everything like that was pretty convenient. Now the InReach SE does not have those preloaded topo maps. There are several differences, not anything real major. It still has a lot of the same functions, but I think it's only about a $50 difference between the SE and the Explorer Plus. And to me, that $50 is definitely worth it to be able to use it as a backup navigation source. One of the functions that I didn't use on the InReach until probably over halfway through the CDT was the weather function. And it's powered through Dark Sky. I don't know if y'all are familiar with that app, but to the best of my knowledge, I think if you have the app on your phone, you have to actually have cell service for it to triangulate the weather to your location. But if you use the InReach, it goes through satellite. I just liked having the weather app. I mean, I know the best way to check the weather is to look at the sky, right? But I like to know kind of what to expect for the next day or so, especially in situations where, like towards the end in Glacier, there was so much snow falling and I didn't know, because the weather can change so fast, what was really going to happen. So being able to be on the ground and know, like, okay, I'm going to check this weather and see how much snow they're expecting to fall pretty much right here, to know whether I need to go ahead up and over this pass and push and get that done today, or whether there isn't going to be any more snow tonight, so it's okay to wait till the morning. And I know some of y'all are like, check the weather out on the trail, like, psh, you're getting fancy, but again, this is a luxury item, and this is one of the reasons that I really liked it. So if you're wondering how the SOS function works, it is not something I have personally done, so I can't speak to an exact experience, but there is a button on the side here that says SOS. It is protected with a little hard case thing, so it's not something that you're gonna push on accident and beckon the authorities to come help you. It's going to be something that you're going to push intentionally because you need some help. So what I understand is that the company Geos, which apparently has saved people or assisted in saving people in like 140 different countries, somebody will respond to you on there and kind of feel out the severity of the situation. If they need to contact somebody for you for help, they will contact the folks who need to come out and rescue you, the local authorities and all that. And I assume if you're unable to respond, it will still send them your location, and you can probably rest assured, but you're unconscious, that somebody will come out and, at least check out the situation. But if you are interacting with them, so say you've fallen down and broken your ankle and they're sending somebody out to get you, they will keep in touch with you until the situation is resolved and kind of give you updates, ETAs, and things like that. If you'd like to see some tutorials about how to set it up and how to actually use the features that the InReach has, Garmin has several videos to help you with that on their website. So I'll include the link to those videos in the video description of this video. It's a lot of videos. If you're wondering how durable these are, this device lasted me the entire CDT, and it looks in pretty good shape. I mean, the screen isn't even really that scratched up. It's not dented up. I mean, it looks like it's been used, but considering I carried it on a 3,000-mile trail and used it every day, it's doing pretty good. So it is rugged, it's impact resistant, it's got kind of rubbery covering around the edges where it's black here. And also, while you don't want to go do water sports with it, swimming and skiing and all that stuff, it is resistant to the elements, so you'll be fine with it getting rained on and snowed on or splashed, things like that. One of the things I was concerned about is how long is the battery life on this thing? And InReach claims that if you have the tracking set to a 10-minute interval, that the battery should last you up to 100 hours. Also, they claim that if the device is turned off completely, that the battery will last up to 3 years. Now, I know that doesn't do you any good if it's turned off, but it just shows that it is a good battery in the device. And to speak to that, I turned mine on a minute ago after having it off for about 2 months now, where I had charged it up during my last stretch on the CDT, and it was at 100%. So it hadn't even gone down 1% in 2 months of just having it stored and off. What I found on my THRU-HIKE is the InReach generally lasted me about 5 days, and that is with messaging very frequently every day and storing waypoints once to twice a day. So it really does last a pretty long time. Now, if you're out for a long stretch and you're using it frequently, it does charge through a micro USB cord, so you can hook it up to your backup battery bank if you use, an Anchor charger or something like that. One way I conserve battery was to make sure that my messages weren't auto checking. So the InReach will actually check for messages on whatever interval you set it to. So I made sure that mine was set to manual. So I had to, manually press a button to check for messages. So that way I was only checking it maybe every few hours instead of at a higher frequency. Another thing about the battery, I noticed that, how my cell phone tends to die more rapidly if it's in colder weather. I did not notice that with the InReach. It seemed to hold its charge just fine in colder or warmer weather. And finally, you don't have to worry about running down the battery because it's, in some pocket or something like that on your pack. And it's mashing buttons, because these buttons, you have to really kind of mash down on them for the screen to be lit up or something like that. Or maybe if you like to keep it off some of the time. Personally, I like to have mine on the whole time because you never know when something can happen. But say you left it off a certain part of the day, you don't have to worry about it turning on accident, because you have to mash the power button and then it'll come on and ask you, do you want to turn it on? And then you have to toggle over and then select, yes, I would like to turn it on. Now, when you use the InReach, you have to make sure that it is in an open area. So you don't want to be under a thick forested area. It will still eventually work. So I slept in forested areas and messaged from my tent, or even when I was in the Gila River area, so kind of down in those canyons with the real high rock walls and all that. Those were the times that I noticed it took the longest to send and receive messages, which can be a little frustrating when you're trying to communicate something, but it's much better than having no service at all. So again, most of the time it wasn't an issue and I was able to get messages through quickly, and there was never a time where I could not get a message through for the whole 3,000 miles. You don't have to stop in one location or anything like that just to send messages back and forth. I messaged while I was hiking. I know texting and hiking is almost as dangerous and maybe even more at times than texting and driving, but I am guilty of the texting and hiking. Now what I did is I kept the InReach in my shoulder pocket that I had on my pack, just stuck it down in there so the antenna was always pointed upward, and I used my phone to send the messages, and it went through the InReach. That way I wasn't having to pull it out of my shoulder pocket and click, 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 and then put it back, so it just rode with me there on my shoulder strap. And that way it was also easily accessible. I just always had it right there if I needed to grab it and use it. I did add this little carabiner on there. I personally, if I'm going through a sketchy river crossing, I like to be able to hook it to my person, to my shirt. I know some folks are like, oh, but you could fall down in the river and your shirt gets ripped off or whatever. If my shirt's ripped off, then that means my pack's gone too. So I like to do that. That is a personal preference. But I just liked having the option of hooking it to something with a carabiner if I wanted to. One of the downsides to the InReach is you do have to purchase a data plan. So these can be purchased monthly. You can do like a year contract, so it's a little bit cheaper monthly, or you can do the Freedom plan where it's basically a month-to-month thing and you can cancel it whenever you choose to. So I started my plan before I started my THRU-HIKE, and when I got done, I canceled it, and there aren't any fees to cancel or anything like that. The data plans range from, fairly cheap, around $12 or so a month, all the way up to $100 a month. It just depends on what you want, what your frequency is going to be of messaging, how often you want to get weather updates. All of that stuff is there on the Garmin website where you purchase the data plan, so you know exactly what you're getting ahead of time. Me personally, I wanted to be able to send unlimited messages and not have to worry about counting or being charged 50 cents a message when I went over those allotted messages. So I went with the Expedition plan. Some ways that I personally found the InReach helpful. You might find it a little silly, but it's the truth, so I want to share it with you because who knows, it could help you in these ways too. So I was going into Copper Mountain ski area. I knew that there were restaurants there, but I didn't know what time they closed. And I thought, if I knew that they didn't close till 11, I might push to go ahead and get there tonight so I could get a warm meal and a beer. So I sent my sister a message through the InReach and asked her to call, find out what time they close, and let me know so I could justify not hiking to get there, or whether I would just camp and get there the next morning. I did get the meal and the beer, by the way. Also, I was able to arrange for a shuttle service when we were down in New Mexico, and heading towards the Hachita area, so just out of our first stretch. Aaron was a little sick, and we got to the road and there was pretty much no traffic, and the 3 cars that came by were not fixing to stop for us. So I was able to message, get a shuttle number, and then text that shuttle service and tell them where we were and, you know, arrange for a ride. When I was in the San Juans, I found out about a fire closure ahead because my mom messaged me and said, hey, did you know that such and such national forest is closed? And I was like, hey, I'm there right now, so I'm really glad that you told me. So I was able to go ahead and make a plan from that point and know kind of how to detour moving forward, rather than it being like a last minute thing that was just kind of dumped on me because I didn't know ahead of time. And also, when we were in the Gila River area and Aaron turned up missing in action, we had no idea where he was. The plan was to just get to the next point that we all knew we were heading to, the next resupply point, and hope he was there, and if not, call search and rescue from that point. But because I had the InReach, I was able to let his mom know what was going on, let her make that call. Luckily, once he got to a service area, somebody was able to message me and let me know that he was in fact okay, and I didn't have to wait to that point. So again, peace of mind. And then later, once Aaron had an InReach, pretty much because he got lost that time, we were able to communicate from InReach to InReach if we weren't right together. So that way, I don't know, you can let somebody know, hey, don't go over Lake Ann Pass night hiking, Aaron, because there is a cornice there, so it's just really not a good idea. And I don't know, just for whatever reason, you might would want to message with somebody else that was on trail, whether you had service or not. Again, these are just some of the ways that I personally used it on the CDT. It was mainly for convenience because nobody was hurt or anything like that, thankfully. But I did have it just in case somebody that I was hiking around was injured, and just knowing that I had, again, that peace of mind was really nice. So like with any other luxury item, I'm sure you're wondering, well, how much does this one weigh? It weighs 8.1 ounces. And of course, not long after we got on trail, they came out with the InReach Mini, which weighs like 3.5 ounces. So that's something that I would like to potentially have for the future. But anyway, I do think that this thing is absolutely worth the 8.1 ounces. And like I said, I will continue carrying it moving forward. Now, if the InReach Explorer doesn't sound like your cup of tea, you're like, oh, that's more than I need. You know, I don't need all that fancy stuff. I just want to be able to send somebody a message and tell them like, hey, I'm okay. Then you might want to look into the Spot device. Now, those do take data plans. They might be cheaper a month. I haven't looked into the cost of those, but the device itself is cheaper than the InReach Explorer or SE. I think you can put in several pre-programmed messages, and then you just hit a button and it sends to whoever you select the messages to go to, and just gives them your location and lets them know like, hey, I'm alive. Now, that is only one way, so they can't respond to you or anything like that, but at least you have peace of mind that they have peace of mind. And then probably the cheapest option overall is the personal locator beacon that is just a personal locator beacon. So it stays off the whole time, and the only time you turn it on is when you're in trouble. You just point the antenna towards the sky, push the button saying I need help, and that's all there is to it. And there's no monthly fee or anything like that. If you want to check out any of these devices more in detail, I will have links to all of them in the video description. And finally, before I close, I want to talk about responsibility. So I feel like if you're carrying the InReach or some other device where you can use SOS to call for help, you need to be responsible with it. So if you are going into a situation that you wouldn't go into if you didn't have this device, then make sure you think twice about that, because when you call somebody SOS, you're in a bad situation and you are putting those people and their lives in the situation too. You know, like if you go dirt road riding or mud riding or something like that, the general rule that I've always gone by is you get stuck in 2-wheel drive and then you use 4-wheel drive to get out, right? So you don't want to go in 4-wheel drive and just get stuck and now you have no options. And that is a little different. But anyway, all I'm saying is that don't go intentionally putting yourself into more dangerous situations just because you have a device like this. For example, at the end of my CDT THRU-HIKE, when the snow was dumping, I went out there and kind of checked out how things were, and I saw like this is a pretty dangerous situation, and there is a safer option than continuing to trudge through the snow that will still get me the same goal, which is finishing a through hike successfully. And I could have gone back out there again knowing like, oh, well, I've got the InReach, I can always call for help. But, you know, those people that come out there to rescue folks, their moms, their dads, brothers, sisters, children of other people. And you just have to think twice before putting somebody else's life in danger. So anyway, I'll get off my soapbox now. That is my personal experience with the InReach. It's something that I don't ever intend to do without again. If you have any specific questions about my experience with it, there are probably a lot of things that it can do that I did not use it for. But anyway, if you have questions about how I used it, then please feel free to comment those down below in the comment section. And if any of y'all have found the InReach to be helpful, or even other devices that you've used, please feel free to share that information too so that other people can learn. And thank y'all so much for watching, and we will see y'all next time.